Good morning. It's good to see you again this morning. We come to, in John 1, to look at verse 14, which is, we've been looking at some really profound statements in the last few days of what and who Jesus is and was and will be. But this statement here in verse 14, and the Word, the utterance of God, the expression of God, that creative force, what came from God's mind into being and made things out of nothing. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of the only Son, as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The Word became flesh and lived among us. And I'm going to read just a little bit from C.S. Lewis's book, The Grand Miracle, God in the Dock. And this is what C.S. Lewis says here. The Christian story is precisely the story of one grand miracle, the Christian assertion being that what is beyond all space and time, what is uncreated, eternal, came into being, into human nature, descended into his own universe, and rose again, bringing nature up with him. It is precisely one great miracle. If you take that away, there is nothing specifically Christian left. And that's what C.S. Lewis says. This is what the whole of Christianity is based on. It's the foundation, Jesus the foundation. What we believe about Jesus is the bottom line. It is the thing that to be a Christian you have to believe. You have to accept this. You have to believe that against all reason, within the body of a tiny newborn baby was the Lord of all creation. That within that tiny child, God had managed to come into this world. The incarnation is what makes Christianity different. No other religion says that the person they follow or the person they call holy is God himself. No other religion says that. And all the things that we've been reading about and thinking about in preparation for Christmas all lead up to this moment when God becomes man. That amazing statement, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. And this is really, isn't it, what the angel said to Joseph? When the child is born, he will be called Emmanuel, God with us. This was the purpose of the whole of the Old Testament, was for God to find a way to live with his people, to live permanently with his people, not just to visit, not just to pop in at moments of crises, but to actually make his dwelling among people. And Jesus achieved more than that by what he did when he came and did that very thing of becoming flesh. He made it possible for God by his Spirit to live not amongst us but in us. That the Spirit of God, the Father, Son and Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, the very essence of God, could be in each of us. This incarnation of Jesus is the greatest miracle. The whole of the life of Jesus encapsulated from his birth right through to his ascension. That whole thing was a walking, living, breathing miracle. The fact that it was possible for God to become man, it's astonishing. It is astonishing. I remember years ago someone telling a story, and maybe I've told it to you already, and if I have, forgive me, but I think it's a very useful analogy. of a farmer with a huge barn, and going into it one morning and realizing that as he went in flew a bird in through the doors. And of course the doors were at the bottom of the barn, of course, and the bird flew up to the rafters and became frantic, trying to get out. There was no way out up at the top of the barn, and no matter what the farmer did or said, he could not communicate with this bird to show it that the way out was through these doors. They were wide open, but the bird could not fly down. His instinct was to fly upwards to escape. And he thought, if only I could become a bird, I could go up into the rafters and I could lead this bird out to safety. I could set him free. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He became flesh for us so that we could escape the disaster that is coming upon us because of the very fact that we don't know, we cannot in ourselves deal with the things that trap us and make us prisoners. But Jesus showed us the way. Jesus is the one to follow, and he leads us out through the door into the freedom of God. The analogy is quite a good one, isn't it? It's something to think about. That in order for us to truly understand what God is like, it was necessary for God to become one of us and live out his nature so that we could see and understand, that our finite minds could actually understand what God is all about. This is the greatest miracle of all. The whole life of Jesus, the greatest miracle, that he submitted himself to all the things that we have as humans. He didn't have to do any of it. There's no obligation on him for any of it. It was done because God is love, and he desperately wanted to rescue us. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. It's nearly Christmas. Don't get too excited. Okay, bye-bye.